It all starts with a boy out in the woods, trying so hard to slice a giant rock with a wooden sword. He's doing this because his older sister, whom he absolutely adores, once told him that if he wants to become an adventurer, this is the least he should be able to do. This boy's name is Shifa, and he's trying to live up to his sister, Rose, who's basically an overpowered adventurer. But he can't even put a dent in the rock. He's frustrated because if he can't do this, he believes there's no way he can become an adventurer. However, he moves on to his next training session, and this time, he's facing a fire-breathing dragon. But instead of panicking, the little guy remembers his sister's calm voice again, saying that same annoying line about what it takes to be an adventurer. This time, however, he manages to attack the dragon and then heads home after training. He lives in this tiny house in the middle of nowhere with his sister, and the moment he walks in, his hot sister, Rose, literally jumps on him, asking how his training went while the poor guy is just buried in her double missiles, dying of embarrassment. Shifa doesn't even fully know what being an adventurer is yet. He's just seen them around the city, always celebrating some victory. But seeing them made him want that same kind of excitement in his boring life. So one day, he suddenly blurts out that he wants to be an adventurer too. Rose freaks out and tries to talk him out of it, but the boy is dead serious. He insists he wants to see the world and learn to stand on his own someday. Seeing how determined he is, Rose reluctantly agrees and promises to help him. A year later, he still can't slice that stupid rock in half, and dragons are way out of his league. But Rose doesn't stop and continues to drill him hard. She tells him if he wants to become an adventurer, then he has to get stronger than her. She then hands him a spear, saying he has to be on equal footing with someone as powerful as her. But before the mock duel even starts, the young man is sent flying like a kite. However, fast forward to the second year of training, Rose takes him to this terrifying place called the Valley of the Flame Emperor and tells him if he ever wants to become an adventurer, then he has to defeat every single monster in there. But then she quickly begs him not to become an adventurer, promising to protect him. Shifa, however, declines, saying he is an alpha and someday it's expected that he'll be the one to protect her. With that, the little guy yeets into the valley like a human fireball, and even though he's sweating like crazy, he manages to drop the monsters there. As if that's not enough, Rose takes him to another dangerous spot called the Thundering Hills and tells him to annihilate all the monsters there as well. The boy continues to fight like crazy, and with every battle he wins, she takes him to more dangerous zones. When they get home, our boy still doesn't rest. His nutcase sister hands him a mountain of books on combat, insisting that being an adventurer isn't just about muscle, it's about knowledge too. 4 years passed, and after training non-stop, Shifa is now finally able to defeat a dragon without breaking a sweat and even split a mighty boulder in two. Rose smiles, proud of the boy. But then, for the final test, she challenges him to a one-on-one duel. Feeling confident, Shifa charges and tries to land a strike, but gets disappointed seeing how fast his overpowered sister dodges every one of his moves like she's reading his mind. Still, the boy doesn't give up and goes all in. Rose finds his determination impressive, and for the first time, she notices that he isn't panicking like a scared little girl. Suddenly, she misses a step, and that's the opportunity Shifa needs to pull out his A-game. He pushes her back, and for the first time, Rose is forced to use both swords, and even she's shocked by how much the boy improved. But after all his efforts, our boy gets smacked into the wall like a useless, worthless weakling. He gets frustrated that he can't beat his sister and feels unqualified to be an adventurer. However, to his shock, Rose tells him she recognizes his efforts and will allow him pursue his dream of becoming an adventurer. Shifa is stunned, but Rose just laughs, saying she never expected him to be so strong that he'd force her to use her second sword. Several days later, Shifa heads to town with his sister, and together they visit the adventurer's training center. By now, the boy has mastered storage magic, the same rare skill his sister's known for. It took him years, but now he's got full control over it. Upon getting inside the guild, they walk past all the protocols thanks to Rose's connections, and Shifa is immediately pushed to class for his physical examination. Turns out Shifa's late. He's the last one to show up, and the moment the other students see him, they give him that cold stare like, "Who's this trash that kept us waiting?" As he hurries to find an empty seat, some girl intentionally kicks his leg, causing him to trip and almost fall on his stupid face. But instead of apologizing, the girl laughs, saying doing that feels so good. Acting all high and mighty, she admits she did it because he made all of them wait. The instructor then takes the stage, introducing herself as Yulina, and asks everyone to introduce themselves one by one, along with their magic skills. One random dude holding a giant sword immediately stands up, introduces himself as Rage, a swordsman, and then brags about slaying an ogre with his beloved sword. But hearing this gets Shifa thinking. 4 years ago, he had subjugated not just one ogre but several, so he doesn't understand what's there to brag about. After that, the girl with daddy issues slams the table, insisting it's her turn. Feeling all proud, she introduces herself as Flores and brags that she's the sister of the famous adventurer Sarah. She also claims she isn't good at magic, but when it comes to swordplay, she's the final boss. When it gets to Shifa's turn, he stands nervously, and after introducing himself, he proudly announces that the magic he's best at is storage magic, which his sister taught him. The room goes silent as everyone starts questioning what the heck storage magic even is. That's when one boy bursts into laughter, and then everyone starts clowning Shifa like he just said his special skill was folding laundry. Flores can't help herself. She walks up to him, calls his magic trash, and says someone like him isn't supposed to be in a place like this. She even goes as far as calling his sister a fool for teaching him such a useless spell. That's a no-go for Shifa. He won't accept anyone insulting his sister and demands that Flores take it back. But the troublesome girl refuses, saying she doesn't take orders from weak sissies. Before the tension explodes, Yulina, the instructor, steps in and suggests a mock battle between the two of them since she was already planning one anyway, so now is the perfect time. Flores immediately agrees, grinning like she's already won, while Shifa just nods, determined not to back down. With that, everyone heads to the Colosseum, where most of the students already think Flores will beat the life out of Shifa. But in Shifa's head, he's thinking about his sister and the disrespect. All he wants is to land one solid hit to make up for the insult. Just before the duel commences, Flores draws out her sword and demands he do the same. But Shifa keeps his weapon sealed for now, using storage magic, remembering that Rose once warned him that if he pulls it out too soon, he'll get countered. The moment Yulina gives the go signal, Flores is already charging, looking to get an easy win. In her mind and to everyone, she's fast, but to Shifa, she's moving like Wi-Fi on a rainy day. Just when everyone thinks she's got the boy, Shifa sidesteps her like she stinks. To everyone's surprise, he summons a magical circle and then pulls out a holy sword from his storage. This sword, Durand, is glowing and feels like something straight out of legend. The rest of the students are shocked at what they're seeing, and even Flores freaks out. But before she can rush him again, Shifa meets her attack with one swing that sends her flying backwards. As if that's not enough, Bro swaps weapons mid-fight, pulling out a spear from his storage magic. He throws it at her but misses on purpose. The spear hits the wall and starts lightning like thunder. Flores starts to panic, but Shifa takes advantage of her distraction and pulls out another weapon, a gauntlet, and then charges at her. He remembers his sister's voice in his head telling him to use the gauntlet if he needs raw power, but also warning him not to lose control. So he adjusts the power just enough not to murder anyone. He also activates Dragon Hand Flame Emperor, and there's fire everywhere. But just when he's about to punch, the instructor shouts that's enough, bringing the duel to an end. Shifa is standing, seconds away from landing a punch, while Flores is sitting on the ground, frozen and completely defenseless. The instructor walks over, asking Shifa to look at the state Flores is in, saying continuing the duel would be impossible for her. The instructor calls it a draw, and Shifa can't believe Flores is sitting on the ground, barely breathing, and somehow it's a draw. However, the instructor explains that if she hadn't stopped him, Shifa might have seriously hurt her, maybe even worse. Meanwhile, the rest of the students are losing their minds, wondering how the loser boy with a useless skill can defeat the hotshot. Yulina sighs, wondering what kind of training this boy got from his sister, but Shifa nervously says it's just normal training. As Yulina walks away, she asks Shifa to see her later so they can have a serious talk, while the rest of the students are still staring at him. But Flores refuses the teacher's verdict, saying she will never accept a draw with some loser. She insists that going against someone who's only good at storage magic feels like an embarrassment. That's when a girl named Rua jumps in, saying Shifa's storage magic isn't as ordinary as everyone thinks. She explains that storage magic is a basic type of magic anyone can wield, but it takes a certain amount of concentration and imagination to use properly. Plus, the difficulty changes depending on what the user can take out. And in Shifa's case, it's impossible for a normal human to summon magical weapons of legendary class. The arrogant girl is shocked by what she's hearing, wondering how and why the boy has such terrifying power. But Rua smiles, revealing that the only person she knows who can use such an advanced storage ability is none other than Rose, the War Maiden. Everyone freaks out upon hearing this. According to Rua, there are only 4 exquisite adventurers on the entire continent, and Rose is the only maiden known to swap multiple weapons mid-battle. Shifa is stunned to hear that his sister, whom he's known all his life, is actually a top-class adventurer. Rua, however, doesn't let the issue go. She turns to Floris, telling her that despite all her bragging about her sister's name, Shifa's sister outranks hers by far. Embarrassed, Floris demands to know why Rua is defending the boy like she's his lawyer or something. That's when Rua shockingly reveals that she and Shifa were promised to marry each other by their older siblings. Everyone is stunned by the revelation, and Shifa is even more shocked than anyone else. Later that day at the instructor's office, Yulina is still surprised at the training Shifa had to undergo at the hands of his sister. To her, training the boy in dangerous areas like the Valley of the Flame Emperor is just totally crazy. So she tells him his power is abnormal and warns that fighting like he did in the mock duel could one day send his opponent to the afterlife. To keep his powers in check, Yulina informs him that starting that day, he will have to live in the academy with her. She explains that Rose is on a long expedition to take down some high-risk demons and has asked her to take care of him. Walking out of the office, Yulina says this opportunity will teach him some common sense outside the mountain where he lived with his sister. Shifa tries to protest, but Yulina refuses to listen and advises him to get some sleep, as the next day marks the start of extracurricular training outside. Realizing that protesting is useless, Shifa slumps on the bed, eager to see what will happen the next day. The following day, deep in the forest, all the students gather, and Rua is getting too close to Shifa, causing him to panic. Meanwhile, Floris is still arrogant and bitter about the humiliation she suffered in the mock battle. Yulina calls for everyone's attention, and then announces that for the day's training, they will have to act like actual adventurers. For this training, participants will have to subjugate as many monsters as possible that live in the forest, and in return, they will be paid according to the number of monsters they are able to subjugate. The danger designation levels of the monsters are levels 1 and 2, which shouldn't be a problem for anyone, even for the shameless losers among them. However, Yulina warns that they're not allowed to venture too deep into the forest. With that out of the way, she begins the training. The students are immediately attacked by goblins, and Rua is out here using her ice magic to take out as many as she can. Shifa, on the other hand, isn't doing much. He's just surprised at how good Rua's ice magic is. Even when he tries to help, he mostly goes around picking up monster parts defeated by Rua. Yet, without even putting in any real effort, he still manages to slice off a few goblins. After clearing the goblins in their area, Rua suggests they head back, reminding Shifa of the teacher's warning not to venture too far. Shifa agrees, thinking defeating this many monsters should be more than enough. But just as they're about to leave, a bloody cockatrice monster appears out of nowhere and attacks. It's a level 4 monster, and knowing how dangerous it is, Shifa tells the others to leave it to him and take the wounded to the instructor. But Rage, who just arrived, insists they face it together as a team. But out of nowhere, Floris pops out and starts attacking the beast all on her own. She turns to the rest, asking them to leave immediately, saying she will handle the monster alone. But before anyone knows what's happening, the monstrous bird opens its beak and hits them with a poisonous gas. Shifa quickly covers his nose to block the poison and shouts at the arrogant girl to do the same. But nope, Floris raises her sword high, and within seconds, the poisonous gas completely disperses. This sets off another round of bragging as the cocky drama queen calls everyone useless and orders them to leave right away. But Shifa refuses, insisting they'll stay and can't just abandon her. Nonetheless, Florus jumps right into action, claiming they're only getting in her way. She starts battling the monster alone while everyone else just watches her, feeling completely useless. The cockatrice tries to flee, but Florus refuses to let the beast escape. Shifa warns her that the mission rule is not to go too far, but Madame Ego is already giving chase. Refusing to leave her all alone, Shifa and Rua join her, and this leads them even deeper into the forest. Knowing they've entered the forbidden part of the woods, Shifa grabs Florus and warns that if she doesn't stop, he'll drag her back by force. But Florus yells at him to shut the heck up and boasts to subjugate the cockatrice before their very eyes. But before their very eyes, something unexpected happens. The cockatrice gets eaten up by a terrifying mouth. Everyone panics, and Rua warns that they have to run immediately. But it's too late. Out of the shadows, a giant beast known as a Terasaur emerges. Florus starts to sweat like crazy, wondering what in God's name a designated level F beast is doing in such a place. She starts trembling, but still, her worthless ego clouds her sense of reasoning, as she shouts at everyone to go home, insisting she'll take care of the beast alone. But just then, the situation gets critical as the monster opens its mouth, and hot air blows out of it. However, this is just a warning, as the beast now recognizes them as enemies or prey to be hunted. Still, Florus stands her ground, declaring that she will subjugate the monster. Rua tries to talk her out of it, but the stubborn girl tells her to hurry up and leave already. Shifa, on the other hand, can see that Florus is shaking and almost peeing herself, yet he still doesn't understand why she keeps insisting on taking down the beast alone. What's she trying to prove? Still, he isn't about to let her fight alone, so he steps forward to lend a hand. Florus demands to know what he thinks he's doing and warns him not to get in her way. Shifa calmly points out that she's trembling, but she denies it, saying she's not trembling. Watching her, Shifa admits that even though she has a smelly attitude, she's somehow a good person. Someone willing to sacrifice herself to help others. So he tells her he was raised by his sister, whom he deeply respects, and that his sister once told him it's an adventurer's duty to protect others, even those he dislikes. With that, he pulls out his massive sword from his storage and walks up to the beast. The monster prepares to blast him with an enormous fireball, but our hero raises his sword, and in the next instant, he slices the beast in half. The creature explodes and is instantly taken down. Rua finds it unbelievable, while Florus is too shocked to say a word. Shifa then approaches Florus, saying that even though he'd love for her to rest a little, it's urgent they head back. But somehow, Florus starts blushing hard after seeing what the boy can do. Shifa, however, stretches out his hand to help her up, and Rua joins in, offering to lend a hand too. But then Florus' arrogance returns, and she yells that she doesn't need their help and can stand on her own. After defeating the Terasaur, Shifa and the girls link up with the rest of the students. But everyone, including the supervisor, is freaking out after learning that they were attacked by a cockatrice. Shifa also casually mentions that they were attacked by a Terasaur. In his head, though, he reasons that letting the supervisor know he actually defeated the terrifying beast will only draw too much attention to himself, so he decides to keep that part a secret. At the end of the training, Yulina asks everyone to return to town, but for Shifa and the girls, she orders them to follow her. They head to the Adventurers Guild, and as they walk inside, Shifa is about to lose his mind seeing all the adventurers he's always dreamed of becoming like. When they reach the receptionist's desk, Yulina reports the completion of the request. But when the receptionist hears about the cockatrice in the forest, the shocked expression on her face says it all. However, the reaction she gives after hearing about the Terasaur is on another level entirely. Everyone in the guild is equally stunned, while some think it's all cap. To prove it's real, Yulina turns to Shifa and asks him to show them. Shifa is caught off guard, wondering how the heck she even knows. But Yulina tells him she can't be fooled, and that only he among her students could have taken down such a monster. Realizing his little secret has been found out, Shifa reluctantly pulls out a massive chunk of the Terasaur's meat from his storage, and everyone completely loses it. The receptionist immediately runs upstairs, saying she needs to call the branch manager. The adventurers start looking at Shifa like he is some god of war, making him awkward and embarrassed. But still, the big question in everyone's head is, why is there a freaking Terasaur in the western forest, a place that's supposed to be home to low-level monsters? Shortly afterwards, a very portable girl who looks like she could fit into Shifa's back pocket walks down the stairs, announcing that there's a problem. She explains that for a Terasaur to appear in the forest, it means a phoenix has also appeared somewhere in the distance. But Shifa doesn't care about all that. His only concern is what is a brat that's supposed to be in school doing in the Adventurers Guild. Everyone bursts out laughing, finding his comment hilarious. That's when one dude tells him the brat is actually the branch manager. Shifa freezes, realizing he just messed up big time, but the branch manager only smiles and calls him an interesting boy. Yulina, however, turns to Shifa, visibly angry, and explains that the midget is Lady Kano, before demanding he apologize for being rude. Shifa can't help but notice that Lady Kano's legs don't even touch the ground while she's sitting, but still, he bows his head and apologizes for his earlier rudeness. Lady Kano waves it off, saying it's fine, and then gets back to the main issue, the cockatrice and the pterosaur. She briefs everyone that normally those monsters shouldn't appear in that area. But whenever they do, it means a magical beast has also emerged. However, she assures everyone there's no cause for alarm, as she's already prepared a countermeasure and even knows who this magical beast is. She reveals that the culprit is a phoenix, a mystical beast believed to be on a danger level of 20, far above the cockatrice and pterosaur combined. After that, Lady Kano walks closer to Shifa and asks if he's the trainee who took down the pterosaur so easily. Our boy gets nervous, and before he can even answer, she asks for his name. The moment he introduces himself, the mere mention of his surname makes her realize he must be Rose's brother. She suddenly starts acting funny, asking Shifa to leave the training center so she can take care of him personally. But Yulina quickly reminds the thirsty midget that Shifa's overprotective sister will come for her head if she tries anything. This makes Shifa wonder if Rose is the troublemaking type of adventurer. But Lady Kano assures him Rose isn't, but admits Rose is definitely strong, maybe too strong. She even suspects that Rose is the one the adventurers, Union, must have appointed to fight off the Phoenix. Yulina agrees, saying Rose is the only adventurer powerful enough to handle such a beast. Hearing all this talk about how strong his sister is, Shifa is left stunned, quietly wondering who the heck his sweet sister really is. Meanwhile, outside the guild, a girl walks down the street, and everyone can't stop staring at her. Turns out it's Rose, who is effortlessly keeping every simp busy gawking at her. One dude in a hat is even about to break his neck trying to get a better look. She walks into the Adventurers Guild in the royal capital, and the moment she steps inside, she hears someone screaming their lungs out. It's some loudmouth guy demanding to be assigned a request to subjugate the Phoenix. The male receptionist tries to explain that the Union has already taken measures against the beast, but the dude refuses to listen and keeps insisting he'll go anyway. Rose interrupts their little scene, but the guy gets mad, yelling that he's in the middle of a conversation and telling her to come back later. The second he turns around, though, he freezes and instantly freaks out when he realizes it's Rose. In fact, every adventurer in the guild loses their minds at the sight of her, unable to believe they're actually seeing the famous Rose in the flesh. But Rose simply approaches the receptionist, who's also trying not to lose his composure, and calmly reports the completion of her subjugation request. It was a mission to exterminate a military dragon in a certain region, and everyone finds it unbelievable that she handled it completely alone. After processing the request, the receptionist informs her that the reward for the subjugation is 2 million cells. But Rose simply instructs him to send all the money to her brother, Shifa, at the Adventurers Training Center. As she is about to bounce, the receptionist yells for her to wait and then pulls out a black envelope, saying it's a personal letter from the Adventurers Guild. The letter contains a nomination request, asking Rose to take on the mission to subjugate the magical beast, the Phoenix, and if she accepts, she's to depart immediately. However, she's also warned that the mission is considered extremely dangerous. Rose sighs in frustration. Having just finished a mission, all she wants is to see Shifa, but with no other choice, she accepts, saying it's fine and that she understands. However, she adds that she'd like to form a party for this mission. She specifically requests 2 members, a girl named Sheami, a superclass adventurer, and Sarah, the elder sister of the arrogant Florus. At first, the receptionist freaks out hearing those names, but then he nods, saying he understands and promises to immediately make the arrangements. Meanwhile, back at the training center, Shifa and the girls also receive a new assignment from Yulina. They're to conduct a survey on the changes in monster habitats caused by the Phoenix's sudden appearance. Later that evening, while having dinner, Yulina leaks some information to Shifa concerning the survey mission. She tells him that for the mission, she would like to see how he handles being in a party with other trainees. Hearing this, Shifa has this dumb look on his face. He is anxious about how things will turn out since he hasn't been in a party before. Very early the next day, Florus enters the class and nervously greets Shifa. Shifa is confused because normally it was always the other way around, with him greeting first. But it seems the arrogant girl is acting kind of strange, and Shifa is clueless about what's going on. To make the situation even weirder, Florus apologizes for making fun of his elder sister earlier, claiming that she's now thinking more like an adult. But Shifa wonders if she's hit her head on the wall or something and isn't sure how to respond. Florus gets frustrated by his silence and tries to explain better, but teacher Yulina enters the class, forcing everyone to settle down. Starting the class, Yulina announces they will be investigating the changed habitats of magical monsters caused by the appearance of the Phoenix, and they will be doing this as a party. She explains that the difficulty of the mission is medium level, which means everyone should be fine. But in case they eventually find high-level monsters, their job is not to subjugate them but to report. As a warning, she makes it clear that they are responsible for their own lives, so they shouldn't gamble with it. When she asks if anyone has a question, Florus raises her hand. She stands and begs for the party to be reorganized, saying she would like to be in the same party as Shifa. Shifa freaks out, but Yulina calmly asks why she would want that. Blushing hard, Florus explains that because Shifa saved her from the Terasaur, she has decided to respond to his feelings. But Shifa is stunned, wondering what feelings the nutjob is talking about. Yulina says she still doesn't see what this has to do with the party arrangement. Frustrated, Florus insists that any man who risks his life protecting a woman has automatically proposed to her. Shifa and Yulina are both confused by this brain-dead logic. When Yulina asks what makes that a proposal, Florus proudly replies that, according to what her sister taught her, any simp who risks his life protecting a girl will be her partner for life and will have to marry her. Fed up with the back and forth, Yulina sighs, realizing Florus is just a wasted idiot. So she insists no changes will be made to the party arrangement, while Shifa is still stunned, thinking Florus' sister must be on crack for teaching the girl such nonsense. The day of the survey investigation finally arrives, and Shifa is made a party member with a guy named Loki, a girl named Tsukumi, and a shy girl named Mylarina. As they prepare to head out for the investigation, Mylarina shyly announces that she's a walking encyclopedia when it comes to demons and monsters. To prove it, she starts naming every single monster they encounter, along with their corresponding level. During the course of the investigation, they notice that every demon and monster seems to be in its right habitat, and not a single beast is out of place. After taking account of all the monsters around, they proceed with the investigation by heading into the high forest. They start checking around for any sign of monsters, but they get the shock of their lives when they can't find a single one there, not even a slime. In the end, their investigation in the forest turns out to be useless, so they decide to camp out for the night and return home the next day. However, the problem is that Shifa feels uneasy, finding it strange that all the monsters in the forest suddenly disappeared into thin air. While keeping watch that night, he suddenly remembers one of his training sessions with Rose, when she took him to a terrifying place where monsters didn't show themselves unless it was nighttime. The memory makes him realize that they might not have seen monsters during the day because they only come out at night. Shifa figures their investigation in the forest isn't done yet, and the original monsters must have been defeated by high-ranking demons. So he rushes into the tent to wake Loki up, and then tells him he'll be going out alone that night to continue the investigation. Loki gets worried for his safety, but Shifa assures him that if anything goes south, he'll run away. With that, Shifa heads out that night to carry out the investigation, But then he notices Mylarina spying and trailing him. When he asks why, she apologizes, admitting that she overheard his conversation with Loki. Still, she reminds him that she might be useful since he doesn't know the demons, names, and levels like she does. Shifa agrees she's right and decides to take her along, which makes her really excited. As they continue walking around the forest that night, they suddenly spot a monster and quickly hide behind a tree. This monster looks like Ghost Rider on horseback, and Mylarina explains that it's called a Dullahan. A level 8, highly dangerous species. That means it's way stronger than the Terasaur Shifa defeated earlier and shouldn't even exist anywhere near this forest. Mylarina quickly whispers into Shifa's ear, telling him that this monster can detect the presence of life force, so it might be useless to hide. That makes Shifa start thinking. He realizes it might be difficult to run through the forest while trying to protect Mylarina, leaving him with only one choice, which is to attack. So he summons his storage magic and pulls out his weapon. But the moment he does, he gets attacked by the Dullahan, and that's when he realizes the monster really can sense their presence. So he lunges an attack midair to catch it off guard, but even that isn't enough to bring down this highly sensitive creature. Everywhere is surrounded by trees, making it hard to swing his massive sword freely. In this kind of tight space, fighting with a long weapon is difficult, so Shifa figures the best option here is a short blade. He remembers his sister once gifting him a short blade, explaining that it's perfect for fighting in small spaces. Plus, the blade is effective against magical beasts and is a must-have in case of emergencies. Shifa pulls out the short blade from his magical storage, and as he charges at the monster, Mylarina shouts, telling him that the monster's weakness is the flame on its head. With that useful information, our boy goes straight for the flaming head, and the moment he stabs it, the flame extinguishes and the monster collapses instantly. Mylarina starts blushing like crazy, seeing that Shifa has defeated the monster. She calls him amazing and rushes over to him. Shifa is also impressed by the effectiveness of the short blade. Apparently, it's a blade that can consume the magical energy and life force of its target. Not only that, but Shifa also recalls that his sister used to pour blood she got from the vampire princess onto the blade to increase its effectiveness. The moment Mylarina hears Shifa mention the vampire princess, she starts freaking out like a crazy fangirl. With obsession in her eyes, she explains that the vampire princess is a level 28 legend-class archdemon and starts begging Shifa, saying she'll do anything just to see the vampire princess. It's clear this girl is a total nerd for monsters and beasts, which makes Shifa laugh. Lost in thought, Shifa reflects that since joining the training center, he's only been attracting crazy chicks. As they continue their investigation, they spot something strange and quickly hide. They see a girl with cat ears sitting on a rock, and Mylarina, as always, explains that this girl is a level 18 monster named Tamo. But Shifa notices that this Tamo girl looks incredibly sad. Suddenly, they hear a voice speaking right inside their ears. It's Tamo, using telepathy to communicate, asking if they are human. Shifa and Mylarina are shocked, but the voice continues, telling them to show themselves. Still, the same problem remains. Shifa knows he can't just escape with Mylarina latching onto him like a parasite. That means he has no choice but to fight this dangerously high-level 18 monster. He thinks it shouldn't be that bad since his sister Rose is stronger than level 18, and he still fights her. With that motivation in mind, he readies himself and charges straight at Tamo. When he gets close, he activates his magical storage and tries to pull out his holy sword. But then something unexpected happens. The magic storage circle suddenly disappears, stopping Shifa dead in his tracks. Shifa is shocked, speechless. This has never happened before. He starts to panic, unable to think straight, knowing that at this moment he's exposed and vulnerable. He's standing so close to the level 18 demon, trying to figure out what to do next. That's when Mylarina shouts, warning him that Tamo is the queen of sorcery. She tells him that his magic storage circle wasn't erased or anything like that. It was just made to look that way. Upon hearing this, Shifa thanks her for the information, and even without the circle showing, he stretches out his hand and pulls out his holy sword. But while all this is happening, Tamo is wearing a charming smile that shows she isn't the least bit bothered. With his sword in hand, Shifa goes for her neck, but surprisingly, Tamo makes no attempt to defend herself. Shifa is shocked, wondering what the heck this girl is thinking, leaving herself totally defenseless. As he slowly takes the blade away from her neck, Tamo asks if something is wrong and why he isn't slicing her throat. Shifa nervously apologizes for attacking her, even though it's clear she wasn't showing any sign of hostility toward them. It's obvious she just wanted them to show themselves, which makes Shifa question why she isn't attacking, even though a level 18 monster is supposed to be dangerous. Tamo replies, saying before she can answer, she wants his partner to show herself too. The second Mylarina steps out of hiding, Tamo starts taking off her clothes to explain why she didn't attack them. Shifa and Mylarina freak out, but then they notice her body is covered in bruises. When they nervously ask what could have caused such terrible wounds, Tamo explains that the bruises were inflicted by the sacred flames of the phoenix. She adds that burns caused by the holy fire of a phoenix can only be healed by bathing in moonlight. Because of her injuries, she says she doesn't have the strength or willpower to fight anyone at the moment. Confused, Shifa asks what she means by the phoenix did it. This makes Tamo give a full explanation about how she and other monster folk were living peacefully on a mountain when suddenly, one day, a level 20 mythical phoenix appeared out of nowhere and began engulfing everything alive in its powerful flames. As if that wasn't bad enough, cockatrices and pterosaurs also appeared, causing further destruction. Tamo admits she tried fighting off the phoenix, but unfortunately she was no match for the beast and ended up getting roasted like a beef steak. After her explanation, Tamo bows, saying all she wants now is to heal in peace and then return to her mountain. She says even if they plan to report her to the humans, they should please wait until she's fully healed. Meanwhile, Shifa wonders if this monster girl can be trusted. As if reading his mind, Mylarina assures him that there's been no record in history of any demon from that mountain ever attacking humans. Shifa can see that the girl is helpless, and besides, she's cute as heck. No guy in his right senses, except maybe a Gabriel, would reject a request from such a cutie. With that, he accepts, saying it's fine, but admits he can't report a lie. However, he promises to make sure he explains that Tamo isn't any kind of danger that needs to be worried about. This makes Tamo super happy. In addition, Shifa also assures her that his sister has gone to subjugate the phoenix, so it's possible the monster is already dead before she even returns home. He tells Tamo to focus on healing her wounds, and once she's fully recovered, she can return to her mountain. Relieved, Tamo grabs his hand and thanks him, saying she owes him one. Shifa just smiles, thinking helping her doesn't feel bad at all. At least her attitude and manner of speaking are a solid 100. With that, he and Mylarina bid her goodbye as they head back to their tent. On their way back, they find some cute floating monsters minding their business and completely harmless. When they finally arrive, they reunite with Loki and Tsukumi, who have been totally useless in this investigation. The next day, Shifa reports the result of the survey to teacher Yulina. He doesn't exclude mentioning Tamo, but keeps his promise by adding that there's no need to subjugate her since she poses no threat. With that done, Shifa starts thinking. Now all that's left is for Rose to quickly subjugate the phoenix. Still, he can't help but worry about Rose's safety. Meanwhile, at the Adventurers Guild headquarters in the capital, the place is packed. 2 gorgeous big shots just visited the guild, and the dudes inside can't keep their thirsty eyes closed. The girls are insanely beautiful, and shockingly, they're not just some random chicks. The first one is Flora's elder sister, the upper-class adventurer Sarah, while the second hottie is Sheami, the destruction caster. The guys are losing their minds and practically wetting their shorts over their presence. Sarah is known to possess a unique ability called the Sound Blade, and is feisty by nature, making it impossible for any beta male to even get close. Sheami, on the other hand, wields incredibly powerful magic. Both girls have been summoned to the guild by Rose to join her subjugation party, and they've been waiting for hours now. Finally, Rose walks in, and everyone loses their minds seeing the War Maiden. To make her entrance even more captivating, she's glowing. Rose walks up to the girls and apologizes for being late, explaining that she stopped at the equipment store to purchase some light armor. Even though the girls aren't thrilled with the apology, they brush it off anyway. The receptionist then walks up to Rose, trying to keep her composure, but she can't help being close to a celebrity and starts blushing hard while asking if she can be of help. Rose, calm as ever, explains that she's ready to leave for the Phoenix subjugation mission and has already formed a party. It's a group of incredibly strong girls, and Rose says they're ready to begin the extreme mission. The receptionist nervously nods but explains certain conditions. She says if after 14 days nothing has been reported on the mission's progress, the guild will treat it as a failed mission. And if after 3 more days they still aren't back, the guild will assume they've taken a one-way trip to Nirvana. One guy comments on his dissatisfaction, saying it's reckless to give such a dangerous mission to a group of wannabe Powerpuff Girls. But then another guy assures him that once the War Maiden is involved, there's nothing to worry about. With everything sorted out, the girls prepare to leave. But suddenly, the entrance door swings open, and some dude walks in with arrogant confidence. When the receptionist approaches him, asking what he wants, the smug-faced guy introduces himself as Rondell, the captain of the 2nd unit that specializes in monster subjugation within the Royal Knights. He says it's clear the adventurers aren't ready to do anything about subjugating the Phoenix, so it'd be best to leave the matter to the Knights. The receptionist refuses, calmly explaining that the request has already been accepted by 3 adventurers. The guy gets pissed, saying sending just 3 adventurers to defeat the Phoenix is basically underestimating it. However, the receptionist assures him that she's confident in the guild's selection. Still, the guy insists that 3 adventurers aren't enough to take on the Phoenix. Getting fed up, the receptionist tells him one of the adventurers is the War Maiden herself, and the other 2 are pretty powerful as well. She adds that the combined strength of those 3 girls far surpasses his raggedy squad of Royal Knights, and if they lose, humanity's doomed anyway. The Knight dude feels insulted by her words and angrily storms out of the guild, saying he'll be waiting to see what the so-called War Maiden is capable of. With the idiot gone, the receptionist apologizes to Rose and her girl squad, saying she got carried away in the moment, but Rose tells her it's fine. Since the onset of the destruction caused by the Phoenix, the mountain, the mission's destination, had been sealed off. So when the girls arrive at the entrance, a guard stops them, saying they can't enter without a special permit. But when Rose introduces herself, the guy nearly pees himself from shock and immediately grants them entry. He warns, however, that the entire city has been engulfed in flames. Thanks to the guild's efforts, some residents managed to evacuate to a nearby city, but unfortunately, several adventurers lost their lives to the Phoenix's sacred fire. But the girls stay silent for a moment, and then Rose simply commands him to open the gate. The second the city gate opens, the girls are hit by the intense heat of the Phoenix's fire. Just like the weird dude at the gate had said earlier, the entire city landscape is completely engulfed in flames. The fire burns like crazy, and there's no way the girls can move any further. Rose then gets an idea. She suggests they extinguish the fire, forcing the Phoenix to reveal itself. Sarah says she has no idea how that's even possible, then asks Rose what she plans to do if the beast actually shows up. Before Rose can reply, Sheami reminds everyone that they're talking about a monster with terrifying regenerative abilities, and even the mighty Rose will have a hard time subjugating something like that. Rose tells the scaredy cats to chill, assuring them that with everyone's cooperation they can take the beast down. When Sheami asks how, Rose lays out her full plan. She says first, Sarah's sound blade and her continuous attacks will wear out the Phoenix, and then Sheami's destructive magic will stop it from regenerating. But even that plan doesn't sound convincing enough for Sarah and Sheami. So Rose goes into more detail. She explains that she'll first extinguish the flames in the city, and once that happens, the Phoenix will surely leave the high mountain and descend into the city, wrapped in fire again. The moment the Phoenix appears, Sheami will immediately start casting her destructive magic to stop the beast from escaping to the sky. Just hearing this makes Sheami nervous. Deep down, she doubts she can keep the Phoenix in check, even with her strongest spells, but she chooses to stay silent about it. Meanwhile, Rose continues explaining. She says once Sheami's done, Sarah will move in next and strike the Phoenix using her sound blade. However, she warns Sarah not to rest and to keep attacking until the Phoenix's regenerative power is completely weakened. But just like Sheami, Sarah is scared too, wondering how long she can keep striking before the beast's terrifying regeneration finally weakens. In conclusion, Rose says that after they've done their parts, she'll handle the rest. Hearing this, both girls start sweating bullets. There's no denying it, this mission could easily be their last. But Rose stands there as confident as an Avenger, unfazed by the danger. Without wasting time, she whips out her spear from her magic storage, leaving the girls in awe. Seeing Rose's overwhelming power firsthand, their confidence starts to rise. With just one swing of her magical spear, Rose extinguishes the entire sea of flames, engulfing the landscape. Sarah and Sheami are shocked and amazed, but at the same time they feel motivated. With their confidence fully restored, they clench their fists, ready to give their all and support the war maiden in this deadly battle. With the first phase of the plan completed, which is to extinguish the fire, the girls switch right into battle mode and head for the mountain. On the way, they notice the town is completely deserted and all other monsters have migrated, but of course they keep going. As they approach the mountain, a massive swirl of fire suddenly bursts into view, shocking them. Inside that terrifying inferno, they spot the powerful phoenix having the time of its life. The moment the beast locks its deadly eyes on them, it starts charging straight toward the girls. But they stay calm, ready for whatever's about to go down. To make sure everyone remembers their role, Rose goes over the plan one last time. First, it's Sarah's turn to weaken the beast with her combo attacks, and she gets right to it, saying she already knows what to do. Pulling her short blade from her bag, she dives straight into action, swearing to eliminate the beast right there. Her mission is clear. Exhaust the phoenix's regenerative capacity, then weaken it with a series of rapid strikes that outpace its recovery. Meanwhile, Sheami and Rose stand below, rooting for her and waiting for their turn. Sarah unleashes a flurry of sword strikes, and the moment her attacks start overtaking the beast's regeneration speed, Rose immediately activates stage 2 of the plan. It's Sheami's turn now to start chanting. With that covered, Rose also jumps into action to support Sarah's assault. But soon, the girls realize that even though the beast's wounds can't regenerate anymore, they still need to push it to the brink, to a point where it won't recover, even if they stop the barrage. To achieve that, Rose shouts, telling Sarah to increase the speed of her attacks. Sarah locks in with everything she's got, but it's obvious the constant strikes are taking a toll on her. Still, Rose demands faster hits, and Sarah pushes herself beyond her limit. Finally, she reaches her breaking point, but luckily, by then, the Phoenix's regenerative ability has been completely annihilated. With that, Rose instructs her to step back, saying she'll take it from here. In the next second, Rose is activating magic storage circle everywhere. The magic circles fill the sky, and out of it, Rose is pulling out weapons left and right. She goes in for the attack while Sarah and Sheami watches in awe, calling it amazing. But the Phoenix isn't going down easy. The fiery beast unleashes its powerful breath attack, known as Father's Breath, and the intense blast sends both Sarah and Sheami flying. Even so, Rose remains firm, her eyes locked on the monstrous bird. Somehow the Phoenix notices the determination of the girls and tries to chicken out. But that's when Sheami continues chanting, unleashing her magic, trying to hold the bird in place. Rose turns and commends her good work, and then from her magical circle she pulls out a great sword that can divide even the firmament of heaven. With this mighty blade, she attacks, and this time she finally lands a strike on the Phoenix's neck. The monster bird screeches in pain, but Sheami holds it down to ensure there is no escaping. She even activates a massive magical circle that locks the Phoenix in place momentarily. One would think she's done, but nope, Sheami isn't holding back. She unleashes a destructive chant known as Water Burial Prison, which engulfs the Phoenix in a massive sphere of water. With the beast now trapped, all that's left is for Rose to finish the job. That's when Rose activates a new magic storage circle, and from it she pulls out the god of all swords, the Heavenly Sword. With this divine weapon in hand, she walks toward the trapped beast, raises her blade to the sky, and declares that it's time to say bye-bye. With no form of hesitation, she slices the beast clean in half like a birthday cake, and the terrifying bird vanishes in a massive explosion. With the mission accomplished, Sarah and Sheami excitedly run up to Rose and throw their arms around her in celebration. A few days later, news of the Phoenix's defeat spreads across the city. Rondell, the commander of the 2nd Unit of the Royal Knights, hears about it and finds it unbelievably ridiculous that the girls actually managed to defeat such a powerful beast in so little time. He gets jealous and demands to see the War Maiden, but the girls are already on their way to see Shifa. However, a few days before Rose and the girls subjugated the flying beast, Shifa and Yulina were at the training center, discussing the Phoenix and wondering if Rose had already defeated it. Yulina then shifts the topic, bringing up Shifa's incredible power. She warns him to be careful with how he uses it but lightly touches his shoulder, saying she'll take good care of him. Shifa gets embarrassed by her words and quickly changes the subject, bringing up the ongoing investigation about the changing monster habitats. This makes Yulina remembers a recent incident of a huge outbreak of monsters in the south side of the mountain. That same area happens to be home to Shifa and Rose, but now Yulina mentions that it has turned into a demon realm. According to her, a demon sanctuary is a place where the concentration of mana has abnormally increased. Hearing this, Shifa panics at the thought of losing his home to demons. When he asks what will happen next, Yulina explains that, for some reason, an archdemon has taken residence somewhere up the mountains. For now, the association hasn't taken any action until Rose returns home to conduct a proper investigation. But this only makes Shifa more anxious as he realizes he can't return home anymore. His sudden, homeless situation makes him think of Tamo, who was also chased away from her home by the Phoenix. He wonders if she has been able to recover by now. Still, unlike her who has no one, he reminds himself that he's better off. At least he still has his sister. Pushing that aside, Yulina mentions that she has something from his sister to give him. She drops a sack of cash, saying it's 2 freaking million cells. Shifa nearly has a heart attack, realizing this is a lot of money that could last him for months. With that kind of money, my boy is already thinking about going into town and having a good time with other trainees. But that thought gets shut down quickly when Yulina says she wants him to be an adventurer with sense. So, she explains she'll only give him certain allowances from the money whenever he needs it. The following morning, Shifa is in class, thinking about his home. That's when Flores approaches him, blushing as she greets him good morning. Shifa wonders if she's still stuck on the whole proposal nonsense. However, she gets close, making him flustered, and then mentions she heard about what happened to his home and knows he's having a hard time. She says if he likes, he can come to her place since her sister is out and she's feeling a little itchy down there. But before that can go any further, Rua pops up out of nowhere and becomes the ultimate cockblocker. This pisses Flores off to no end, and she yells at Rua to take her negative vibes elsewhere. Just then, Loki rushes in, asking to see Shifa for a moment. When Shifa asks what's wrong, Loki tells him that some adventurers are heading north, probably to subjugate strong monsters. Out of curiosity, Loki says he asked the Unions exactly where they were going, and that's when he got the shock of his life. He was informed that the adventurers' mission is to subjugate Tamo. Shifa can't believe his ears. He's immediately horrified, remembering how grateful Tamo was the day he promised her not to worry about any attacks from humans. He can't understand why the adventurers would even go after her after the report he gave. So without a second thought, he rushes off to find Yulina. But just as he turns down the hallway, there she is, walking toward class. Shifa blocks her path, demanding to know why, in God's name, adventurers would want to subjugate Tamo. Yulina calmly explains that, as adventurers, it's their job to defeat dangerous monsters lurking around, even if those monsters are wounded or not. Shifa refuses to accept that, insisting there's no need to subjugate Tamo since she has no intention of harming humans. But Yulina tells him that adventurers wouldn't stop subjugating even if the guild told them not to. That's when reality smacks Shifa right in his stupid face, and he realizes she's telling the truth. With no time to waste, Shifa dashes for the exit, saying he has no choice but to go help Tamo. But in the blink of an eye, Yulina makes him trip and fall. She tells him that under no circumstance will she allow him to leave the training grounds so early, and then orders him to get back to class. But Shifa just stands there staring at her and fuming. He remembers how his sister always told him that an adventurer must always keep their promise. With that in mind, the boy pulls out his sword, asking the instructor to let him through. Yulina asks if he seriously wants to take it there. Shifa replies that he has no intention of hurting her, but he will if he has to. The commotion outside draws Frosel and the rest, and they rush over, asking Shifa what the heck he thinks he's doing wielding a sword against the teacher. Before Shifa can say a word, Yulina orders him to listen carefully and then asks if he's trying to protect Tamo because he's starting to catch feelings for the monster girl. Shifa quickly denies it, saying that's not the case. He just believes she shouldn't be subjugated because all she wants is to go home. However, Yulina lets him know that if a trainee interferes with an adventurer, that's an instant expulsion from the training center, and it would destroy the trust his sister placed in him when she recommended him. That hits Shifa like a brick, as he remembers how much his sister wanted him to stay focused on training. But then he tells Yulina that Rose, his sister, doesn't care about little things like that and insists on going. Seeing his determination, Yulina admits she's always known he's just as hard-headed as his sister, and no matter how much she tries to convince him, it's pointless. So she finally agrees to let him go, but warns that the adventurers sent on the subjugation mission are upper-class exterminators. Shifa thanks her and then sprints out of the school. Once outside, he dashes straight toward the forest, but suddenly hears someone shouting for him to wait. He turns back to see Rua, who offers to help, insisting she can't let him go alone. Shifa reminds her of Yulina's warning about trainees being expelled if they interfere with adventurers. But the girl doesn't give two Fs about any of that and says if they get expelled, they'll just leave the training center together. Even though Shifa can't tell if she's thinking with her brain or something else, he feels a strange sense of reassurance having her around. With that, they both head into the forest, and after walking for hours, they suddenly see a terrifying sight and hide. Turns out some groups of adventurers led by a very ugly, hostile girl are approaching where Tamo is. Rua tells Shifa that the ugly girl is Syria, an upper-class adventurer famous for her hatred of monsters and her brutal skill. Shifa nods and then suggests they hurry up to save Tamo. But when Rua hesitates, Shifa wonders if she's still doubting whether Tamo is worth saving. This delay gives Syria time to reach Tamo and start threatening her. Tamo says she has no intention of fighting and begs to be left alone. But the chihuahua-faced girl laughs, saying letting her go will only mean she'll go back to taking human lives once her wounds heal. Tamo tries to explain she has never hurt anyone and that, as guardian of the god of the mountain, she doesn't attack people. But Syria kicks her in the gut and sneers that a guardian of a god is just a monster after all. Watching Tamo get beaten, Shifa's blood boils. He sees Syria about to strike her down and rushes forward to save her, questioning whether this is the kind of adventurer he really wants to be. He pulls out his gauntlet from his magic storage and starts rotating like a drilling machine toward his opponent. As he spins, a massive inferno erupts around him. He remembers Rose warning him that the firepower increases the more he rotates, and that if he spins too much, the opponent might not even have bones left afterward. The intense heat scares Syria, forcing her to pause and wonder what the heck is going on. Meanwhile, Tamo is relieved and shocked to see Shifa standing before her, engulfed in flame. On the other hand, Syria is furious that a human is defending a monster and demands to know who he is. Shifa refuses to answer and instead asks whether she enjoyed tormenting someone who couldn't fight back. Turning back to Tamo, he tells her not to give up and assures her she will definitely return home. But this pisses of Syria. She calls Shifa a silly brat and orders him to shut up, insisting all monsters must die. However, at that moment, Shifa has had enough of the ugly girl's rantings. So he uses the gauntlet's power to spin her like a dirty rag in a washing machine. After tossing her around, he finally releases her and she collapses to the ground, exhausted and beaten. Shifa orders her to leave immediately and then threatens to smack her in her rotten face if she doesn't. But still, the ugly girl keeps blabbing, insisting on terminating Tamo. Her unchecked stubbornness pisses Shifa off, so he raises his fiery gauntlet, ready to destroy her face. But that's when someone grabs his burning fist. It's Rua. She smiles even though her hand is getting roasted and begs Shifa to calm down, saying they aren't here to fight. Shifa is stunned that she'd go this far, but he eventually agrees. Still, Syria isn't satisfied. She demands to know what he thinks he's doing protecting a monster and reminds him that monsters are meant to be subjugated. but then she is confused by his terrifying power and then asks if he is an adventurer. When Shifa replies that he's just a trainee from the training center, Syria is shocked to hear that someone at his level possesses such strength. Even so, she brushes it off and warns him not to interfere with the subjugation of dangerous monsters. But Shifa refuses to back down. He tries to reason with her, telling her that Tamo will leave once she's healed from the holy fire. Still, Syria will not budge. She says he'll understand once he becomes a full adventurer that monsters are not worth keeping. Fed up with the endless back and forth, Tamo steps in, telling Shifa not to worry about her since protecting her will only drag him into deeper trouble. Shifa freezes, torn between wanting to help her and not wanting to hurt anyone. Before he can figure out what to do, Syria charges straight at Tamo, while Shifa just stands there, unsure of his next move. But suddenly a powerful gust of wind knocks Syria back, shocking everyone. They all turn toward the direction of the wind, wondering who could have done that. That's when Sarah appears, stepping forward to defend both Shifa and the monster girl. Her sudden arrival only makes Syria angrier. She demands to know what Sarah is doing there and warns her that this isn't the time for childish games. But Sarah ignores her tantrum and instead turns to Shifa, introducing herself and saying she's here to repay the debt she owes Rose. Meanwhile, Syria blood boils. She reminds Sarah that even she won't be spared by the Union if she interferes in a monster subjugation. But Sarah just smirks and calmly reminds her who she's talking to. She says as the swords sound, there's not a single upper-class adventurer in the country stronger than her. That only fuels Syria's rage. She calls them all idiots for protecting monsters and activates her magic, Wind Spirit. Shifa is stunned seeing that Syria is also a magic swordsman, while Sarah just smiles, asking if things have gotten so serious that she needs to pull out her magic sword. Syria grits her teeth and yells at her to shut up, warning she won't show mercy to anyone who sides with monsters. Sarah shrugs, saying that's fine, and tells her to stop talking and come at her already. With that, Sarah launches an attack with her wind magic, promising that Sarah won't get away unscathed. But Sarah is all ready for the attack and is even smiling. Suddenly, mid-charge, Sarah gets smacked away by a massive storm, surprising everyone except Shifa, who already figures that the overwhelming power can only belong to one person. He knows too well that the wielder of such powerful magic must be none other than his sister, Rose. Right on cue, Rose steps out of the swirling tempest, radiating a calm but commanding aura. She rushes straight to Shifa, checking if he's okay, and then explains she was heading to the training center when she sensed the Emperor Flames coming from the forest. The moment Syria realizes who's standing before her, her face drains of color. She trembles like a frightened puppy, awkwardly introducing herself and trying to explain the situation. Rose listens quietly, then turns her attention to Shifa and Tamo, saying she has a few questions to clear up before deciding what to do next. She starts by asking Tamo if she has ever taken a human life before. Tamo answers honestly, saying she would only fight back if her people on the mountain were attacked. Rose nods, and then for the second question she asks Tamo what she really thinks about her brother. Both Shifa and Tamo gets embarrassed by the question. Blushing, Tamo softly admits that Shifa swore to protect her, and that it was the first time anyone had ever said those words to her. That's all Rose needs to hear. She turns to Syria and declares that there's no need for a subjugation. Syria tries to argue, but Rose shuts her down instantly, saying she won't allow anyone to harm Tamo. Realizing that Rose is exercising her authority as a top-class adventurer, Syria grudgingly agrees but mutters that she'll report this to the Union. She starts walking away, but Rose calls her back and tells her that if she had made the mistake of even scratching her brother, she would have sliced off her head. Sarah freezes in fear and immediately scurries off with her useless squad of adventurers. Once things calm down, Shifa asks if it's really okay for her to override a subjugation like that, and Rose tells him not to worry. Then she turns to Tamo, saying she would have healed her with a magic potion, but sadly, such potions don't work on monsters. Tamo thanks her for the thought, assuring her that her wounds will heal once she bathes in moonlight a little longer. With the situation finally settled, Shifa suggests they all head home, telling Tamo to rest well. As they're leaving, Sarah and Rose mention they'll be returning to the capital, and Shifa thanks them both for their help. Once they're gone, Shifa quietly reflects on everything that happened. If Rua hadn't stopped him earlier, he might have actually murdered someone. He thanks her sincerely, but Rua just smiles and says that if he really wants to repay her, he can do it by forming a party with her once he becomes a full adventurer. Shifa freezes, speechless, while she chuckles and tells him they should hurry back to the training center before they miss dinner. The next day, at the south side of the mountain, Rose heads home. She meets the guard at the entrance, who first thanks her for defeating the Phoenix, and then asks if she came to investigate her home that has been demonized. You see, demonization occurs when a region's magical density becomes abnormally high due to the appearance of a demonic species. The guard is scared, wondering what kind of demon could have occupied the area, believing it must be a terrifying monster. But Rose continues on her way home, and when she finally arrives, she senses a dark, terrifying presence casually sitting in the middle of the living room. Turns out the demon is actually a pretty girl, someone Rose instantly recognizes as Luciela, a friend of hers. This girl, Luciela, is a vampire princess, the same one who once gave Rose her blood to forge the small sword. Over time, the two became very close friends. Rose scolds her, warning that if she fails to suppress her magic before visiting, the whole area could become demonized. But Luciela assures her that she has already suppressed her magic considerably. When Rose asks why she suddenly came to visit, Luciela laughs, admitting that she got an idea that might be fun. But Rose is bothered, wondering what kind of fun idea could make her come all the way to the mountains just to tell her. Luciela then reveals that her idea is to become an adventurer. Rose is surprised and immediately tells her it's not possible since she's not even human to begin with. But Luciela reminds her that there isn't any rule stating non-humans can't become adventurers. The fact that Luciela wants to become an adventurer makes Rose start thinking. Timeline-wise, if she becomes an adventurer, she'll graduate around the same time as Shifa, meaning there's a high chance they'll meet at the training center. This isn't something Rose wants, as that could be unsafe for Shifa. So she tries convincing Luciela to drop the idea. She tells her that being an adventurer isn't a good idea because she'll end up demonizing everywhere. But Luciela replies, saying it's fine and that she'll just suppress her magic even more. Rose then brings up the issue of walking around in the daytime, since sunlight is an enemy to vampires. But that doesn't work either, as Luciela just pulls out a parasol, explaining that she created it by mixing her blood with a powerful element known as argentite. With this parasol, she can completely block out the sun. Rose gets frustrated, realizing there's no way to convince Luciela to drop the idea. So she finally gives in, hoping everything goes well and that Luciela can be trusted. Meanwhile, days later at the training center, Shifa gets informed by Yulina that the demonization of the south side of the mountain has settled down. Shifa is relieved to hear this, though he would have loved to be part of the demonization process so he could learn how it's done. Before Shifa heads to class, Yulina also informs him about a very important emergency meeting happening at the Grand Square that day. Later that day, at the Grand Square, the place is packed with adventurers. It's not just the trainees attending, but also experienced adventurers. To address the gathering is branch manager Kano, who thanks everyone for coming and then announces that there will be a task to eliminate dangerous monster species all over the city. She says the person in charge will be Sarah, who will explain the assignment in detail. Sarah walks up to the podium and asks everyone to quiet down. She explains that the commission is to clean up the monsters that left their natural habitat due to the Phoenix's appearance. She adds that the assignment will be carried out by forming temporary parties and warns that entry into the high forest is prohibited to everyone except special class adventurer Rose. Shifa is relieved to hear this, knowing that the high forest is where Tamo is. Yulina then steps in, explaining that everyone will be split into 2 teams and will also be accompanied by upper-class adventurers who will help fight the dangerous species. Without wasting time, everyone starts pairing up, leaving only Shifa, Rua, and Frosel. Just as they begin wondering which party they'll join, branch manager Kano approaches them, saying they'll be in a party under her watch. With that, she tells them they'll be heading toward the deeper levels of the Great Forest. As they walk, Shifa notices they're heading exactly to the spot where he previously defeated the Terasaur. When Shifa asks Kana why she chose to form this party, she explains that while others explore different areas, their task is to clear the deeper levels where dangerous species like pterosaurs and cockatrices have been reported. Suddenly, they spot a snake-like monster known as a basilisk, and Kano immediately asks Shifa to handle it. Shifa swiftly slices off its head while wondering what the little midget is really up to. Along the way, they continue encountering more monsters, and each time, Kano tasks Shifa with taking them down. Soon, they arrive at the deepest level of the forest, where they see a massive cockatrice hovering above. Kano announces that the beast is their cleanup target and then orders Rua to handle it alone. But Shifa insists on doing it himself. As he approaches the beast, he suddenly notices 2 more cockatrices joining in, making it 3 in total. This makes Kano smile as she insists Rua must be the one to handle them now. Shifa panics and tries to protest, but Kano warns him not to interfere. Rua, however, turns around and reminds Shifa that they once talked about forming a permanent party together, so now is the time for her to show him her power. Even so, Shifa still pulls his sword from storage, ready to help, but he stops midway and decides to trust her. Rua starts chanting her magic spell, and suddenly the temperature begins to drop. Shifa is shocked as ice starts forming across the ground. Rua casts a spell known as Absolute Zero, and the entire area becomes engulfed in frost as the surroundings freeze over. At that moment, the cockatrice locks eyes with her and lunges forward, but Rua summons a massive ice blade and drives it straight into the beast. Everyone is stunned, seeing that the girl's ice magic is on a completely different level. In an instant, she takes out the other 2 cockatrices, leaving Shifa in awe. But suddenly, the atmosphere shifts, making Shifa tense up, unsure of what's happening. From deep within the bushes, 3 terrifying monsters appear, and even more shocking, a small girl radiating with an evil aura steps forward, causing everyone to freeze in fear. Who is this evil girl? Comment overpowered sister if you're hyped to see what happens next in part 2. If you enjoyed this video, drop a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content. Thanks for watching, as always.